God damn it, Red Eye, put your pants back on. Hey, everybody, how you doing? Welcome to the wood. You're now on my wood, the morning wood. We're up, we're ready, we're stiff, and we're going hard at it. Yes, we are. This morning, we will be talking about the volcano situation. Or as Brett Keane would say, the volcano situation in Hawaii. Before we get into it, though, before we get all hot and bothered, we're gonna. I want to make sure you guys check out next week. There's a special guest at one day next week. I won't be here, so the special guest host will be Pimpmunk. You won't want to miss that.
Wow.
Yeah, she's gonna be hosting for me. You don't want to miss Pimpmunk hosting the show. You don't want to do that. And also, at the end of the show, we take tips and all that stuff. And we've got a stream goal of $100. And here's the deal, folks. If we make that $100, Saturday morning will be the very first Saturday morning wood. And we will be talking about old cartoons. If we don't make it, it won't happen. But if we make $100 before the show, I will be doing a show tomorrow, Saturday morning. And we'll be talking about old cartoons and shit. So there you go. It's up to you. And
number one, have I got to find my pants? And number two, am I pulling weekend shifts now?
If I make $100, you are.
Hey, but Red Eye, you get time and a half for weekends.
That's right.
Time and a half and nothing is still nothing.
Yeah, but it's a time and a half nothing.
Yeah, good point.
And if you do tip to the show, I will read your messages at the end of the show. Okay, let's get on with it. Mr. Landon Noll, how you doing?
Hello from your friendly secular astronomer. How are you doing?
Doing well. How you doing, Red?
Tip of the hat or tip of Pimpmunk's hat to Red Eye.
My new leather hat, my new leather sexy.
You're looking fine there, I must say.
I am. I'm looking cool, brother. Anyways, Red, how you doing?
I'm doing well, boss. How about you?
I don't really give a fuck how you doing. Honestly, I know.
I wanted to go for particularly for Red Eye. This is a
hey, sorry, I gotta guys keep going.
Yep.
I'll be right back.
This is a T-shirt that we did for the 2003 total solar eclipse down in Antarctica, and it's actually was done by my niece, but it's the reading with the land way down under. While Red Eye might need a ground harness to not fall off the bottom of the earth. Here you need also to pump the blood back up because you're hanging upside down. So
that's awesome.
So there's a lack of no seriously, it's an amazing place in the southern hemisphere. For those that are sort of stuck in the northern hemisphere, sometime in your life, go down to below the equator. Now, if you're below the equator, I would recommend you at least come up on the other side one time, because you have a different section of the universe you can look at from down under.
Yeah, you got a whole bunch of different constellations to look at. And the further north you get, I'd actually like to see Aurora Borealis and Aurora Australis, but you've probably seen both many times now.
Yes, and to say, I mean, obviously the Aurora Borealis, which are so-called northern lights, are easier for me to access than the southern lights. The thing about southern lights is that you don't have as much landmass far south as you do in the north. And also the other thing is that you don't really want to be right at the pole. The magnetic pole is off to the side. If you're looking at this, here's Antarctica, and South America is in this way, and I think Australia is down that direction.
You just pointed at your dick.
Yeah, well,
we're not thinking about your dick, Landon.
Okay. So the magnetic pole, even though the South Pole is here, the magnetic pole is over here. So this zone here is kind of this zone around here is the best spot for seeing Australis. Although you can see it in tips of like a southern part of South America.
So sexual. Poles and tips and all this.
He keeps talking about his poles. Call the police.
I feel violated.
Sexually harassed. Hashtag me too. I'm holding a press conference.
Next thing you know, Landon's gonna be standing up on fucking police mount saying it was the Ambien.
Yes. Well, anyway.
Allegedly.
Anyway.
Sorry I had to walk away. My dad needed me. Hey, when daddy calls, you gotta run. So yeah.
And hey, I say hi to Papa Pimp for me, and I hope that Mom is doing well.
Yes,
please
sir,
present her my best compliments, if you please.
Absolutely will. Don't be talking about your poe around my mama. I'm saying now. We can only go so far with a bow.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think we've got the point.
Think of the children.
Think of the children. All right. So the topic of the day is the volcano situation.
Yes.
So you won't jump right into it. I'll share Landon's screen because I think he's got some stuff to show you. So
yeah, so we'll do the whole desktop here. Start screen share. So
what the fuck?
And what we're going to do here, this is sort of the infinite regress here. There's the, I want to go and put this one down here and pull up this spot. Now, can you see a picture of me with lava?
Yes.
All right.
That's you, right? Let everybody know that is actually Landon there.
Yes. And
fucking Christ.
And I just an explanation there. What we're doing is we're collecting a lava sample here. What you'll see, what I have in my hand is essentially a tire iron, right? Yes. And I've taken a chunk out of the lava there, and I'm swinging around to that bucket, which is over there on the right, to dump the lava in the bucket. It flash freezes and falls off the stick there. I have essentially a rolling glove in front of my face because of extreme heat coming off of that of that lava. I mean, I'm in a suit that kind of like the race car drivers use, as sort of an insulating suit with some overalls because of some of the acid rain that we were experiencing in this area.
I bet you got a serious case of swamp nuts right there too. Ooh.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you are in the middle of the tropics. It is very, very high humidity, and so dressing up, with in layers is not the most favorite thing to do. Also, that there's a lava tube I'm standing on, so that rock with a crack in it is kind of springy because there's actually liquid. There's lava underneath, but I'm less buoyant. Or I'm more buoyant than lava. I'm lighter, so we are floating on top.
I got one question. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Well, some people have to go and take samples. And the reason why we take samples of the lava coming out of the volcano is it tells us about the gases, and it tells us about the magma that produced this lava. Magma is stuck underground, and it reaches the surface and becomes lava. So we get an information about what's happening below the surface and down in the magma chamber from taking live samples. Now, for cultural purposes, we put the rocks back. So we're just borrowing what culturally the Hawaiians refer to as Pele's children. I heard the rocks that come out of Pele, the goddess of fire, as they call it, are considered sort of her children. So we merely borrow them for a period of time and we bring them back, right? So that's one of those things that and most, if you talk to nearly all Hawaiians, they say, yeah, they know it's a volcano and it's rock, blah blah. But culturally, it's one of the things that they do. Just like a bunch of people have Santa Claus or something like that. It's kind of a it's a cultural
and you gotta respect people's culture.
Yeah, I mean, it was polite, at least. And
Absolutely.
So that's one of the polite things that we do here. So I was also going to see if I go to full screen mode, do you still see that image?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's get started. The Hawaiian Islands, do you see my cursor here? See my cursing?
Oh, let me see. Do it. Run around. I don't see. Do you see it, Red?
Nope.
I don't see cursor.
Yes, I do now.
Yes, yeah. Actually,
Loaded in. Yep.
Okay, so this is the big island of Hawaii. This is the Hawaiian chain sitting here, and this is an image. It's a Mercator projection showing you North America over here on the right. On the left, you see Asia. There's Japan, Kamchatka, and this blue area is a Pacific Ocean plate, and you see this dark band here. It's called this is part of the Ring of Fire, the edge of the Pacific Ocean. And you have it running along here, the Aleutian chain. You have it going down to the famous trenches, like the Marianas Trench down here. And so this large plate is what's called the Pacific Ocean plate.
Yeah.
Now, dominant in here, that catches your eye, is this chain of islands turning into submarine islands, and then it takes a turn and heads up here towards Kamchatka. This is the history of the hotspot that is currently active in Hawaii.
Okay.
We know from geologic history that this island chain is at least 80 million years old, and we can look at here's the island, the current Hawaiian island chain. And it actually is a series of islands, even going back to Midway. The islands here have sort of been eroded so much that they're now underwater. There is this curious turn in the plate that occurred somewhere around 50 million years ago. The Pacific plate is actually not one solid plate, but it has a number of fractures. It's moving currently in this direction. The plate is moving in this direction about 85 millimeters a year, 8.5 centimeters, which is around, for those that are metrically challenged, that's about 3 inches a year or so, I think. And so what we think is happening, or what is believed to happen, is that the hotspot is staying in the same spot, and the ocean plate is moving relative to the hotspot. It's moving 85 millimeters a year in this direction. And so what happens is that this becomes this island here, here's the big island of Hawaii, is where the current hotspot is. And in the past, the hotspot was here, 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 and here. It's the plate moving over the hotspot rather than the hotspot moving over underneath the plate. Although there's actually some controversy as to whether or not the hotspot is also moved slightly. It appears that most of the motion is due to the plate.
That kind of makes the Earth look round, though. That's bullshit.
Yes, and for those that are not mentally challenged, this is the curvature of the Earth, and you see the thin atmosphere. But so the Hawaiian chains, this is part of the state of Hawaii, the 50th state of the United States, also has the big island here is referred to as the, sorry about that.
Could you possibly make your cursor look bigger? Because it's hard to see.
Let's see, can I do that? I probably can. Let me figure out how to do that. Actually, let me.
If you can't, that's fine. If you can't, that's fine.
So here is let's go back to full screen mode. So again, here is a relief showing the current Hawaiian chains. And the red there is showing you the major lava flows in the last 200 years. The big island is actually composed of 5 volcanoes, one of which is currently erupting. And if we go and look at these volcanoes start off below the ocean. And they begin on the ocean floor, starting to rise as sort of subterranean. In fact, there is, if you can see my cursor sitting here, there is a volcano called Lo'i'i, which is currently below the ocean, and it's going to become the next island in the Hawaiian chain. The hotspot is sitting right in this area here, so it is currently causing the eruptions of the Kilauea volcano and Mauna Loa. But there is a volcano that is currently below sea level that's rising up.
No.
As these volcanoes become build up, their weight pushes down on the crust, and you get to the point of things like Mauna Loa, where it actually is fairly significantly pushing the crust down below what would normally be the case. Mauna Loa is an extraordinarily large volcano. It rises in terms of, for people that are into feet, some 13,700 feet above sea level, around 4,300 meters above sea level. That's to here.
Wow.
You go in terms of feet, another 18,000 feet down to the sea level. And then it has pushed the crust down another 25,000 feet. So if you look at the actual true height of Mauna Loa, it is over about 55,000 feet, which is around 11 miles, which is around, I guess, around 16 kilometers or so. It is the most massive mountain on Earth. It's the largest volcano. The size of this thing is truly enormous. The volume is amazing. If you took the entire Sierra Nevadas, the Great Mountain Range in California, and you added to it the volume of the Appalachian Mountains, the mountain range on the east coast of the United States, and you took those two together, you would still not have enough to account for the mass of this one volcano.
Wow.
So the hotspot has produced items there. And again, off the coast, there is this subterranean thing called Lo'i'i. Here it is. Here's the big island of Hawaii. See on the inset, showing you where the thing is. And we've just had a big explosion at the summit. Those messages are showing up on my screen if you could see them. And we'll see what happened here in just a moment.
Wow.
But anyway, that's probably expected to break the surface of the ocean somewhere in the next 15,000 to 100,000 years. So we'll stay tuned for that. So here is the big island of Hawaii. It consists of 5 volcanoes. The one that's in dark here is Kilauea, and that's the current volcano that's erupting. The big island here, the big one is Mauna Loa. And again, remember, you're just seeing the part of the volcano that's above the ocean. Mm-hmm. There is in feet some 18,000 feet of water down to the ocean surface. So this is actually much larger here, and in terms of kilometers, you can see 30 kilometers is a huge distance. So Kilauea is an active volcano, and it's actually currently erupting. Mauna Loa is an active volcano. It last erupted in 1983, and again is expected to erupt again. Hualalai is an active volcano. It last erupted 200 years ago, or actually around 1801. It had some events occurring in the 1950s, but it didn't produce lava on the surface. But these 3 volcanoes are considered active and are capable of erupting. Mauna Kea is dormant. What dormant means is that the hotspot is no longer actively feeding the magma chamber. It can erupt, but it will be relatively small eruptions compared with what an active volcano does. And Kohala is considered to be probably extinct in the area. So when you go and say, where is the volcano if you arrive in the Big Island of Hawaii, everywhere you're standing is a volcano. So let's go back and look at where Kilauea is in its structure. This is the summit of Kilauea, this thing called the Kilauea caldera we're pointing at. And within the summit, this is a caldera. It's kind of like the summit doesn't come to a peak or a point. There's actually a depression, a caldera on the top. It's around 3 kilometers by 5 kilometers. So it's, a couple miles across. And in the middle of this pit, or the side, is a place called Halima'uma'u. That's what that word means there, Halima'uma'u. And Halima'uma'u is the central vent. And we'll be talking about the central vent here, and we'll see what's happened. There's just been a large earthquake, and so we'll see what just happened in just a few moments. But so that's the peak. That's the central vent coming from the magma chambers deep down below, coming up. The other place that has been active is this place called Pu'u'o'o. And this is a vent that has produced lots of lava. By lots of lava, the press kind of is all excited about current, the volcanoes erupting. The thing to realize is Kilauea started its eruption on, I think, January 4th, 1983. It's been erupting for the last 35 years. And by erupting, I mean it has been continuously pumping out lava for the last 35 years. So it's not news that the volcano is erupting. It's news in how it's erupting. And we'll be talking about where, how this eruption started and what's different now. Why are people quite excited? What changed? The eruption has gone into phases, and there's been modes that it's been erupting at. We are currently in the 62nd phase of this 35-year eruption. And this 62nd phase, these phases behave in a very, very different fashion from the previous phases. And transition from phases always comes with a lot of excitement, saying, what's the volcano going to do next? And then it settles into a routine, and people get used to that, and then the volcano changes yet again. So we will be talking about Halima'uma'u, the summit, Pu'u'o'o, and this area down here at the very, very edge, where you see Puhala, Kapoho, in these areas here. This is along the area where the lava is currently coming out. The volcanoes, shield volcanoes, tend to have spines. So we see here the south rift zone this direction. We see the east rift zone here. And so they're not like a nice central peak like you might see Mount Fuji or Mount Rainier. Shield volcanoes tend to have these spines where there are lots of faults and cracks, and you also have lots of side peaks and vents where stuff comes out, as well as at the summit. And again, remember, this is just the very top of the volcano. It drops another 18,000 feet to the ocean floor. The volcano itself, in terms of feet, is only around 4,000 meters, or about 4,000 feet high above the ocean. But it is a fairly high mountain when you consider the ocean floor that it's resting on.
Yeah.
Okay, so far?
Yeah.
So we talk about, I'm talking about this magma chamber and the hotspot. What do we mean by this? Well, here's a diagram, and it shows, depth in miles. That's around 16 kilometers, around 32 kilometers. And what it shows is that much, much deeper, there is magma, liquid rock rising up due to buoyancy. And it reaches the surface and kind of balloons out, kind of like a blister. Here is Halima'uma'u, the summit. Here is Pu'u'o'o, the side vent, and it moves on. That the area of where the lava is coming out is much farther down in this direction. But this is sort of the general diagram of what's happening. This magma chamber is exerting pressure on the surface and keeping it in an elevated state. And this is the source of the eruptions. This magma chamber stays here as an active volcano all the time. There's magma coming up, filling it, other magma that cools and goes back down, but it cycles around inside this magma chamber. An active volcano has a magma chamber which has energy being fed into it, and it's also churning over and over. And we can see from the telemetry the breathing that's going on. We call it breathing, the cycling going on inside the volcano. As I mentioned, the summit here is Loudmouthed, the central event. It's inside the caldera here. So here you can see in miles and kilometers, this is a fairly large feature at the summit. And so this is kind of like the bathtub, and this is the drain hole of the bathtub. Oh. And we also have Pu'u'o'o. The current eruption of the Kilauea volcano started at Pu'u'o'o in January 1983. And the lava.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. And these Hawaiian names are really, really fun.
Yeah.
And again, you see this spine here with all these sort of craters and peaks. This is again the part of that eastern spine. This is the ridge line along which magma comes up at Loudmouthed, and before it reaches the surface, it starts working its way underground, and it came out here and spilled out lava. And by lava, I'm talking about an enormous amount of lava from Pu'u'o'o alone. In this current eruption that's been going on for 35 years, it has put out over 4 cubic kilometers or 1 cubic mile of lava. If you took the entire lava that just came out of Pu'u'o'o alone, it would fill a cube 1 mile by 1 mile by 1 mile, or 4 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer cubes. An enormous amount of lava is coming out, and that's how these that's how these islands grow. Without these active volcanoes, the islands would shrink, because this area here it's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, has some of the highest rainfalls anywhere on the planet. You have places like, for example, in Kauai, which is one of the wettest places on Earth, where every day they experience what you would consider to be a big torrential downpour in your area. And I've been in places here where we've had over an afternoon a half meter, or about 18 inches of rain in one afternoon. So these islands have lots of rain. That rain will very quickly erode them if it wasn't for the fact that the volcanoes are working to build it up. And in this area, the eruption of Kilauea started where there were lots of earthquakes. We saw the mountain expanding. The pressure of that magma chamber was pushing up against the rock. Earthquakes and expansion and tilting of ground then it finally broke out here at a spectacular fountain at Pu'u'o'o. And it's built up this nice cone with all kinds of side cones that are really spectacular sets of eruptions.
That is a beautiful shot. That's a beautiful.
Well, thank you.
By the way, Landon's a professional photographer, and he's the one that takes these pics. So
yeah, some of them are there, but this one I happen to take a picture of.
Beautiful shot, man. Beautiful.
Thank you kindly. I took this I'm in a helicopter, and you're looking at what Pu'u'o'o looked like about 6 years ago or so. It built up this large, nice central peak, and then the peak collapsed, but left this nice oval crater, and then it would fill up and spill out on occasions.
That happens to look like Red Eye's asshole, by the way. I'm just saying.
And we were here to put this equipment here is little cameras that we put on the side to look down in this area. Essentially, these are cameras we put to sacrifice to Pele, because you can see the edge of this thing is pretty crumbly, and it crumbles in on occasion.
I'm just looking at that photo, and I've got to be quite honest, that looks less crusty than my arsehole.
It's more like a zit.
That may be Christy Winter's vagina also. I'm just saying.
Oh, hey, Madam Pele does not. You can never go to Hawaii now. She will just seek you out and drop lava on you for that.
Yeah.
Why did you say that?
Thanks to Pimp and Red Eye for ruining Landon's presentation. Sorry, sir. Go right
You're
ahead.
welcome. So, and over the years, Pu'o has put out lots of various flows. So here's, for example, I think this was a map we did in 2011, and you can see the various flows that have occurred. And what will happen from a vent is that lava will start flowing a particular direction, and then it will build up mass because it's putting lots of material on the surface. And that buildup will become so high that it'll block the lava and it'll send it in a different direction and in another direction and another direction. So the lava just doesn't come out in one spot, go down a river and stop. It tends to build up to the point where it can no longer flow that direction. Then there's some kind of earthquake. There's considerable amount of mass being added to it, so stuff is pushing down. And it breaks out in an entirely different direction. There was a number of housing developments. This section here that I'm pointing at, that's in the 2007, 2011 range, was a place called Royal Gardens, and a housing development that was just on the edge of the national park, and it got wiped out. The last houses that were there were lost in 2011. There was another kind of gardens here where they actually built a little hotel, and Pele wiped out that one back in 1986. And so it's been spilling in various directions, and these changes of directions are also come with various phases that occur. And here is the summit. What the summit used to look like. Again, we're inside the caldera. It's at the very top of Kilauea. And inside the caldera that's 3 by 5 kilometers is this little drain hole. And the drain hole, this area is called Halima'uma'u. And Halima'uma'u is the place where about 10 years ago, the vent opened up. It popped a small little hole in this vent, and we started, it blew a little hole in the top, and it started filling up with lava. And in fact, this large lava lake started off with a fairly small hole and slowly enlarged over time. The edge of the hole was very precarious, so we didn't even bother putting cameras here. We didn't put cameras up on the edge over here. It used to be, you see this spot here, this used to be this nice parking lot where you could come to the parking lot and look over into the pit. That's obviously closed in part because this white stuff here is not, well, there's some steam in it, but there's a lot of not only carbon dioxide, but there's also sulfur dioxide, and inside that gas is hydrofluoric acid and hydrochloric acid. There's hydrogen fluoride and other fairly nasty gases that would kill you if you breathe too much of it. But again, I want to show you sort of the depth of this thing and its size and how the vent started off with a small hole. Remember that because we're going to see a very, very different situation as it is today. Again, that lava lake was a beautiful lava lake. That stuff was churning over it. We would put cameras on the edge of the would be the floor of the caldera, looking down into the pit to get these nice views. But the rock was fairly precarious; it would crumple in, and every so many months, another camera would go in to the lava lake, and we'd have to replace it. And I'm an astronomer, a planetary scientist, so I study planets. Earth being one of those planets I study. We, in our astronomy, make use of cameras that are that take pictures of infrared colors that are slightly longer than the deepest red that you can see with your eye. Those cameras are really good for looking at things that are hot. And so we frequently share previous versions of our camera with the USGS because they're constantly having to replace it due to the volcano. Here's an example of a thermal image that is showing the lava lake. You can see this point, it was wow. Down below. And again, to give you an idea of scale, this lake here, the hot part of the lake is, at this point, is around 150 meters or around 550 feet across. So this is a large, this is like, 1.5 football fields in size. At this particular point, the lake had gone down a little bit below. So this distance here is about 40 meters, around 120, 130 feet. The temperature, the scale here on the side is talking about the wavelengths of intensity, but it corresponds to temperature. So the white part of this surface of lava lake is around 1,250 degrees Celsius, or that's around 2,280 degrees Fahrenheit. Some of the hottest lavas that have ever been recorded on Earth are found in Kilauea. The lava at Kilauea, excuse me, the Kilauea's lava is not only extremely high temperature, but also is low in sulfur. It doesn't stink that much, which is kind of fortunate for those that work around it. But it's a very, very fluid lava. It's not the type of viscous lava that you might find from a volcano, let's say in Guatemala, or a volcano like Mount St. Helens. It tends to be very, very hot and very, very free flowing. There's another picture I took. The visitor center, which is currently closed, and I'll explain why it's closed. They took a rare situation in closing the national park. But the national park had a nice visitor overlook where you could look down into the lava pit, for many years, and it's a beautiful, extraordinary sight. I think it tends to be better at night because you can see the glow that goes on there. This, of course, is looking into the southern part of the sky. We're at 18 degrees north latitude, so we don't see the Great Southern Cross or the other things, but you can see Alpha Centauri, Beta Centauri here. So you see a little bit of the southern stuff, but not all the goodies. Anyway, this lava pit of Halibama was an amazing place to go and see. And so for many years, most of the lava, the magma would rise up at the summit, head down that spine to Pu'u'o, where it would pour out and head towards the ocean, right? And so again, 1 cubic mile, 4 cubic kilometers of lava has come out so far. This is a picture of the Pu'u'o vent. And a couple weeks ago in late May, we had a major earthquake and this vent collapsed, right? The whole, that peak that you saw way back here, right? We'll go back to this spot. This entire area, this nice peak and so forth, collapsed. And fell in on itself. And we had a big boom. One thing to understand about volcanoes, the volcanoes rarely do damage by popping. They're not like it's not like a zit that pops and spews stuff out. Volcanoes tend to do their damage when they collapse in on themselves. Again, Mount St. Helens, even the explosion that occurred was there was a at the base. There was a vent explosion that undercut the structure of the mountain, and the top fell into the magma chamber. Places like Mount Mazama that formed Crater Lake was a collapse of a volcano. Mount Tehama and Lassen was a collapse of a volcano. Krakatoa and other things like that, again, were volcanoes that collapse in on themselves. So when volcanoes collapse towards the end of their eruption, that's when they tend to do the most damage to the area around it.
Did you say Krakatoa?
Yes, Krakatoa.
Okay.
So now understand that in the 35 years, the cone at Pu'u'o had collapsed several times, right? And people have learned to say, oh, the vent collapsed. It's near the end of the eruption. It's going to stop soon. That's the end of it. And we've seen the Kilauea come back again and again and again. Having an event like this that you think signals the end of the eruption, and it only to restore, restore and start a new phase. So we've learned to say, oh, collapse. It's not the end of the eruption. It's just changing phase. So this collapse marked the end of the 61st phase and beginning of the 62nd. So we wanted to know what's going to happen. How is it going to change? Because obviously the large structure that causes this vent to collapse, is it going to rebuild itself? What happened? Here is the Pu'u'o vent after the gas clouds kind of blew away, and we could see down inside. And now you can see that that large peak is now a big pit, big hole in the ground. And what happened was this. This is a map showing earthquakes, the beginning of the earthquakes. I think this was probably like May 27th. This area here, Holy Mountain, that's the summit. That's where the pit is. Remember, it had a hole here with a lava lake. That lava lake was the largest lava lake on Earth. And it was very accessible from the visitor center here, the Jagger Museum overlook. This is where Pu'u'o cone was, and all of the 4 cubic kilometers or 1 cubic mile of lava going on this way. This is the spine. And what we saw was lots of earthquakes at the summit. That's somewhat common. Magma's moving. Here is where the vent collapsed. And we started seeing lots of earthquakes down the spine, which is kind of curious because if this thing collapses in on itself, you would think that would stop the magma moving down this way. But in fact, what the magma did was went underneath the collapse and started creating lots of earthquakes along this spine. In the meantime, because it's not flowing out here, when it collapsed, the lava is no longer flowing on the surface, the magma is building up pressure. We saw lots of earthquakes at the summit. And the presumption was it collapses, it blocks. So it adds pressure to the magma coming up, and we get nice fountains at the summit. But we had this curious collection of earthquakes hitting down this direction. And that kind of puzzled us. So I remember telling somebody, the future me is going to come back and say, well, it's obvious what's happening. And the obvious thing that's happened is magma goes underneath the Pu'u'o vent and is moving along this area here. And that's in fact what happened. When we look at another thing, this is around May 29th, we saw lots of earthquakes along the area. Here's the summit, this large cluster here, but we saw lots of earthquakes towards the tip of the edge of the volcano. And here's another case of showing, again, lots of earthquakes at the summit and earthquakes along this spine. So magma, even though the collapse here at Pu'u'o stopped the lava going into the sea, magma is clearly moving down the spine and clearly pouring up here. The lava lake stayed high at the summit. That lava lake at Holy Mountain, that beautiful pool of lava, stayed up high. And yet we had these earthquakes over here. And so it was kind of curious. But then all of a sudden, the lava lake drained. And that's where, a number of us said, uh-oh, the Kilauea volcano has now gotten quite dangerous. Again, remember, it's not that volcanoes go splat and blow out like a firework. It's when they collapse in on themselves that become quite dangerous, and that's what happened here. This is a map showing you, and this is a map showing you of the Kilauea caldera era. Volcano House here is a historic house, at least in Western standards, that started around in 1850s. It's the place where Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, went to write the book of Roughing It, and he describes seeing into the Kilauea caldera to the great eruptions of that time. Here is the visitor center here. So this is all part of the national park. Where this triangle is, caution triangle, is where the overlook at the Jagger Museum, where you can look down into the Holly Mountain pit. So I'm giving you sort of a notion of here. You can see the scale here in kilometers or miles to give you sort of size of this thing. So as of yesterday, this was the earthquake group. Actually, this is the earthquakes over the last 3 days. And there are some 4,000 earthquakes that have occurred in the last 3 days at the summit. Right now, it's lots and lots of nice wiggles and earthquakes there. Some of them are as big as like magnitude 6. A lot of these dots are around magnitude 3 to magnitude 2, but enough that you were standing on the ground, you can feel the wiggles. Here is a larger thing about again, the eastern spine. Here's Halemaumau. Here's where Pu'o was. Here's where the lava is coming out. And this shows you the earthquake thing as of the last 3 days. And we can see that there's lots and lots of activity at the summit. There is some earthquakes activity around here. The lava is flowing, and we'll see from the maps how it's flowing in this area. But there's not a lot of earthquakes. It's like sort of when magma is pushing through the rock and changing shape of the mountain, that's where you get earthquakes. When it stabilizes and you get a stable flow, merely lava coming out doesn't generate earthquakes. It's when it changes size, you get earthquakes. So in terms of maps, here is the Pu'o vent where most of the lava was coming out in the last 35 years. The summit is off to the left, and this is this East Rift zone where we started seeing earthquakes. Even though lots of earthquakes at the summit, we started seeing earthquakes along this spine and knew something was up. And so if we continue going forward, I'm going to show you some maps here. The first thing we saw May 5th was so those earthquakes I was talking about were in April. I apologize, I got the month wrong. But these fissure events, we started seeing cracks showing up here in this place called the Leilani Estates, and these are housing areas where people live. And we started seeing cracks opening up. The cracks were initially just cracks in the ground, some steam coming up, but pretty soon we started seeing more and more of these things, and then eventually a fissure opened and lava started pouring out. And as you can see in this area here, we have a number of fissures. We started numbering them based upon where we discovered them. This fissure number 8 is the current fissure that's actually most active, and is where most lava is coming. So here we see May 8th. We see other spots here, by the time we're talking about May 16th, again, other fissures begin to open up. We have, fissures up to number 20. Now, understand this is an area that's had eruptions and lava before. You can see in the pink, here's 1955, 1960 eruption, 1840 eruption, 55, 55. So this is an area that's had lava flowing in recent years. The entire volcano, Kilauea volcano, again, this sort of pink area here, has had its surface resurfaced at least once in the last 1,000 years. But this area in particular had lots of things, some 60 years ago, 55 years ago or so. And we can see, again, this fissure 8 is moving, but it hasn't moved very far, whereas this fissure 17 started opening up and creating a front. Here is just from 16th to 20th. These fissures opened up. We had now fissure 22, and we had a lot of material pouring out, heading towards the ocean. And again, these maps are produced in order to help civil authorities and homeowners understand where and what's going on. Given again the amount of lava that was coming out here and the amount of earthquake activity, we didn't think this was just a 1 day, 2 day event. It's going to stop. That this looks like it's ongoing. By this time, the lava lake here at the top, the summit at loudmouthed, has drained away. And I'll explain why that was dangerous. But the lava, the big giant lava lake, the big cauldron of lava has gone away, and it's now coming out with a vengeance down in this area. So people along this area were suggested to evacuate. Part of the problem is that the lava was expected to start cutting off the road and access. The people here have long since evacuated. This PGV is called a Puna geothermal venture. This was a geothermal plant that supplies lots of power in the Hawaiian Islands, and that geothermal plant has shut down because they're getting a little bit too thermal, as you can see. So this is on May 20th. Here's May 22nd. So what has happened is the lava from fissure 22 has turned into lava channels and is entering the ocean in a couple of spots. The one thing to understand about lava is that relative that the air, even very hot tropical air, is extremely cold compared to the lava. When the lava comes in contact with cold air, it freezes. Again, this lava is some of the hottest on Earth, exceeding 1,200 degrees Celsius, 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit. So when it hits something that's even hot tropical air, it freezes. The only time that you will see red lava is when it's actually moving so much that it breaks the crust. If it sits there for any period of time of moments, it'll freeze, the crust will freeze over, and it'll stay liquid underneath because the rock crust is a great insulator and will insulate the liquid lava underneath. And that's what happened here. We have what's called lava tubes. These were open channels that froze over on the top. Lava keeps running underneath. So you end up building these tubes that transport lava very, very quickly down to the surface. And notice fissure 8 really kind of stopped at this point because a lot of the materials coming out of this area, we said, okay, that's what it's going to do. It's going to start pouring out here. They put the geothermal plant here for a reason. Magma was relatively close. It was a really good way to send water down there, generate steam, and generate power. So it's no surprise that lava, magma is close to the surface here, is pouring out, going down to the ocean. Figured, okay, that's what it seems like it's going to do. Then fissure 8 started erupting, sending out little bits of lava on the 23rd. And again, notice we start seeing some side active channels. Those tubes and stuff build up on the surface. They start rising as the bottom freezes. The top is insulated, so it literally is a tube of lava. But if you get overpressure events where it breaks open the tube or it rises and spills out, you start getting these little side vents going. Then all of a sudden, these vents going into the ocean, they're active but not flowing as much. And this fissure 8 started sending this material down towards the geothermal plant. Here it is on the 28th, and now fissure 8 is going, is now quite active. There's actually some pretty good fountains here. There's a little bit of spillage of stuff on the side heading down to the ocean, but for the most part, most of the volume that came from fissure 22 has cut off. It's now coming out fissure 8 in a couple of directions. So you sit there and see like this, you say May 20th, well, what's it going to do? Right? Well, the thought is, well, maybe this material is going to head off in this direction. Maybe this will start up and come down to this area here. We don't quite know. All we know now is that what was coming out of the ocean has stopped because the lava is heading in a different direction. So here we are on May 29th, and now fissure 8, a new fissure opened up. They call it 24, but fissure 8 is pouring lots of lava out, and the front seems to be heading in this direction. Well, then we started seeing some renewed activity from 22, and very, very quickly this is within about just a few hours. So here's at 8 p.m. So this is another another 18 hours or so. It starts taking off in this direction, while this one is moving forward. That actually kept flowing, and so the idea is, well, all right, so maybe it's going to come out and enter the ocean down here, but then fissure 8 started really going quite fast, and again the flow started heading this direction. This area was evacuated because we didn't know if it was going to be heading off this direction or not. Here's on the 31st, and now all of a sudden this flow that seemed to develop quite rapidly starts slowing down. There's a lava tube, but it's not advancing very quickly, and these are advancing quite fast. So here is on the 31st, there's on June 1st, and it starts, this area here takes a turn, but this star starts moving down. So here's on June 1st. Here's June 2nd, and that's where fissure 8 started really sending out amazing amounts of lava, really high fountains, where it was going some almost 100 meters or around 330 feet in the air before coming back down, entering a tube, again, because it's crossed over. So it's like this, it gets transported very easily down the spine. This side thing that we thought was going to go and potentially bother these highlands, these houses, has stopped and is now taken a corner and heading down perhaps in this direction. So that's what happened on June 2nd. June 3rd, it becomes pretty clear the volume coming out at fissure 8 has really kicked off. Well, there's a little bit of fissure 16. This is kind of dribbling and not really doing that much. And it's really rapidly advancing towards this area called Vacation Land. Vacation Land was a really sort of a bunch of timeshares, a bunch of houses, really sort of vacation resort. There's a very nice inland area here with a coral reef and snorkeling. It had a little bit of history of 1960 just to the edge of it, but otherwise this area was a sort of pristine pool. Back in the days of the Hawaiian kings, this was sort of a royal area where only the elite could go. But the lava now is moving quite fast. And so June 3rd, it's like this, and June 4th, it enters the bay. And understand, by the way, going back a little bit, there was actually a couple lakes here that the lava went over the lake, oiled the lake away, filled up the hole, and kept going. And here it is on the 4th, and here it is on the 5th, and here it is on the 6th. Now it's moved out into the ocean pretty far. And people started, and in fact, there's a number of houses, or some 200 plus houses that have been wiped out in this area. Now,
I've got an update on that for you, Landon. I'm just sorry to interrupt. It's now a record. It far surpasses the 215 structures that were consumed by lava during more than 30 years of earlier eruption cycles. So they're up to approximately 600 homes now have been gutted. And that lake you mentioned, it boiled off Hawaii's largest freshwater body of fresh water in 4 hours.
Yeah. I mean, just think about it. The lake has gone boil away in 4 hours, and and look at, for example, how much of that bay. This was ocean, right? And that bay gets filled in and moved out into the ocean quite a bit.
And there's over a new square kilometre of land. That's a new kilometre of land there, a square kilometre
in a day or two.
Yeah,
so people
it's
ask,
crazy.
Why can't you just like put up those little highway barriers or dig a trench and divert it or so forth? I mean, understand if the Pacific Ocean can't stop it, your pouring water on it isn't going to do anything. So, and in fact, it just, as Hawaiians say, it just annoys Pele and makes her more mad. Well, in some sense, you start trying to change the lava, it's going to send it someplace else. Now, this is the current map. As of there's always going to be an update. I'll look to see if there's another map update for this area. But Fissure 8 is a spot that's 35 kilometers down spine from the summit where the magma is coming up, and it's heading 35 kilometers underground, coming out at 8, going through these tubes. And again, these tubes are a number of miles, number of kilometers long, entering into the ocean. And the question is, well, what's going to happen next? Well, these vents typically kind of cycle. I mean, 8 could be cut off because 11 could open up, or maybe there's other fissures that open up farther down. It could be that this lava tube will break open and head off towards these houses, or it could be that 8 will send itself off and head down in this direction. I mean, it is a very chaotic system. We don't see lots of earthquakes at this point, so it seems like the magma flow is stable. But understand that this magma coming from the summit, these 35 kilometers, is a very, very long distance for magma to move underground. And any spot along here, you get an earthquake, the spine collapse in on it, and it can start pouring out in a completely new direction. It seems again like this stuff isn't anywhere near stopping, but that is because a lot of people have predicted, oh, this vent has collapsed, it's the end of the eruption, only to be disappointed. So here is a picture. Let's go back to the summit now and say, okay, so the spine opened up, lava's pouring out, it kind of went in various directions, but it seems to be flowing into this bay for now. Let's return back to the summit. So this is a picture I took from the visitor overlook while the park was still open, taking a picture of the lava lake that was there. Again, at this point, the lava lake is about 200 meters, 660 feet across. This huge lava lake boiling away, and you could see it. Right now, you could see it in the daytime because where the lava is churning, it breaks open. You can see a bit of glow before it freezes. And it was boiling away. It was a great sight to see it at night. And that's a picture at night. And it was just a lot of times we would just sit there at the edge or the overlook and just watch this show, right? And kick back, stars overhead, occasionally showers would go by, but it would, mostly it was pretty clear views. And various Hawaiians would come up to bring offerings to Pele. You could chat with them and have a good time. Then what we saw on May 4th was the lake started lowering, right? It was very, very vigorous. It was really lots of gas coming up, lot of boiling in the lake, but the lake level started dropping. Here is the lake by the 5th. It's now down considerable thing. Again, scale-wise, this lake is now about 200 meters across, about 660 feet across. It's more than that in terms of depth. By the time, this is a picture that we took from a thing, and you can see now that the lava lake has dropped considerably. So here is a huge volume that used to be liquid rock, lava, that's gone someplace. Well, it's kind of obvious where it went. It went down the spine and it's coming out as lava down there on the states that's filling that bay. But this is the motion. This drain was however of concern, because by the time you get to the 9th, we can't see the bottom of the lake anymore. We now have this huge pit. It's over a kilometer, some 3,000 feet down, and where we thought the lava lake was. But essentially, you now have this large hole in the ground with gas coming out. And this is developed a very dangerous situation. I should say, by the time we went to this phase, I decided to get out of here. In fact, we were calling on the Park Service to do an unusual thing that they haven't done since the national park opened, which is to close the summit area. And here's why. This lava lake has a very, very deep column down to the magma chamber. And as long as the lava lake was there, it exerted pressure on the edges of the hole, keep it from falling in. It also kept the groundwater away by sheer heat. But when the lava lake vacates, rock from the edge starts falling in. And the lack of lava there means that the torrential rain that pour down into it and on the side from underground channels start coming into the column. That water works its way down, turns into steam. The steam rapidly expands, and you have essentially a cannon blowing out rock out of the surface, out beyond the surface. And so this potential for explosions of the mountain collapsing on itself and going bang was very real. And we started seeing that. We started seeing gas changes. Here is the visitor center where you can overlook down into the lava lake. This is was a former military camp. And that's outside the park.
Fucking Camp Crispy.
Yeah, yes. So we had a fairly significant. There was a fairly significant event that sent rock up into the air some 10 kilometers. That's around 33,000 feet in the air.
Just sorry to interrupt again. Is this the day that the nice gentleman caught the lava boulder with his leg that was shot out of that thing?
Yeah, I think there was, or near that time, there was.
Yeah.
I don't know. You want to say about that guy that?
Yeah, lucky it hit him in the leg and not the fucking head.
Yeah, and it took out his leg. But he was actually down near the fissure, down in the spine where the lava is coming out, and down in fissure 8. Again, you'll find most of the native Hawaiians have cleared out of the area, but there's some vacationers who don't really get the memo that it's not safe to be around here. So the park by this time had closed, and there are refrigerator-sized boulders coming many kilometers down from the sky, hitting the ground. So it's not an area to be around. So this is done by, we put in remote cameras, but the ash keeps knocking them out and so forth. It's hard to do. This is an example of one of the summit eruptions, and you see rocks flying. These rocks are falling, right? It took a picture. In here is loudmouthed, the crater, and you see rocks of reasonable size falling down from the sky. There's another picture seeing down in the pit, and you see essentially the big heavy stuff sits in this 1 mile 2 kilometer range. So this red stuff talks about ballistics of things that are 25 centimeters, 10 inches in diameter, bigger than basketball size rocks falling down.
House bricks falling from the fucking sky at terminal velocity. It's like, here, catch this. Ah.
Yeah. And even the yellow here are between half centimeter and 25 centimeter size. So they're marble to basketball size things falling in this larger area. The wind is generally going towards the southwest, so that's why it tends to be in its elongated pattern. But that's sort of why they did it. Now, they had problems with tourists coming up and along the highway, parking and walking in and looking at this stuff. And these people don't realize that a slight change in angle of the rocks, you see this gas coming up, but there's also rocks falling down. And those rocks are not just rocks. Yeah. They're actually fairly high temperature bombs coming down.
You know what? Can we relabel these nice people here? They're not people. They're fucking lemmings.
Yes, and it's a syndrome Park Service has of people saying, "Well, let's get out their iPhone or their Android phone and take a picture of it." This was taken by the visitor center camera while the Park Service watched it. They waited until the gas cloud kind of went down and came in and basically got people evacuated. About an hour afterwards, you had sulfur dioxide levels that built up in the area around 2 parts per million, which is near lethal levels. So had these people stayed in another hour, they would have probably been dead from the gas. So the thing right now with this collapsing volcano is to stay away from the vent until it has its big event or does something. This is a satellite view with radar that took a picture in May 5th, and you see the caldera, you see the Heliomalmo pit, and the vent that's there, and the size of the vent. So all those pictures you saw where the lava lake was draining, that huge lava lake is this small dot. And HVO is the observatory where the visitors could look down inside it. Volcano House is a nice historic house where you can stay in the park. I highly recommend it, assuming it survives. So here is May 5th. This is May 17th. The vent starts to expand in size. May 21st, May 29th, May 31st, June 1st. And you see June 2nd here, you see there's a lot of fairly unstable cracks where stuff is sliding into this ever-expanding hole. And here's June 6th, again, more sliding, this thing getting larger and larger and larger. So one of the things you say, by getting larger, it's gone from a very, very narrow hole to sort of like a martini glass shape. But also a lot of material has fallen down into that hole. That's your cannonballs that are loaded up inside the column. And you have now very significant rainfalls that have occurred, that water is percolating down to the spot where the magma is going to cause it to turn into steam. And one of three things is likely to happen. This is my talking to my future self, which is going to come back and say, "You idiot, isn't obvious I was doing this." But right now, we would say there's about a 70% chance that water is going to come down and flash to steam and have a very significant explosion, sending rock up, out, and around surrounding area. There's probably about a 20% chance that what will happen is the magma will come back up into the vent. Perhaps what will happen is there'll be an earthquake on that 35 kilometer spine that'll shut off the magma flow that's flowing out into the ocean. And it'll back up and come up on the top, and it'll renew this thing in a nice lava lake. And there's maybe about a 10% chance that the eruption will stop. It's going to stop at some time, but we've always missed it. So here's a picture showing you now what at one time when the when the gas shut off. And you see now that the pit is now enormous, right? It's now well over a kilometer, actually, 2/3 of a mile across. We see lots of places that once were flat that are sliding down into this pit. So not only is it widening, but it's also getting deeper. And stuff is moving down in. This is material that's plugging the hole. And it's particularly dangerous, again, because we don't see gas coming out. Doesn't mean there isn't gas there. It means that gas pressure is building up underneath.
That's what's happening in my stomach right now, too. Gas.
Yeah, and really Pele's ready to emit a fart.
Me too, yeah.
Wow.
Me and Pele, eye to eye right here, baby.
Yeah.
Are we talking chilly night type farty, explosive diarrhea?
We're talking the green apple splatters.
My shit, I'm gonna tell you right now, my shit can melt rock too. There you
go. You know what? I just wanted to say too that there's a photo from earlier. It's one of the thermal images. I swear to God, it was a photo of Pimp's butt just as he was taking a big chili poop.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like. I was just saying. I was pretty sure that was it.
By the way, crowd, I got a message. Pimp, you're being quiet. This is Volcano Friday. This is a presentation that Landon's giving, so I'm trying my best not to interrupt. I'm an asshole, so I have to every now and again. But
yeah, there's only a few more minutes. I'm going to move into. I'll show you some pictures of lava, but I wanted you to understand.
Yeah.
The thing, and again, in volcanoes, the danger is often not where the lava is, because it's kind of obvious. You just stay away from the lava, right? It's where the lava isn't that is extremely dangerous. And again, you see all these cracks, very unstable material that's going to fall down in areas. So you don't even want to approach this zone. But let's look at some of the fissures right here. This is now down on that spine where those estates are, and you can see essentially these fissures where it's fountaining out. Lava tube. So there's going from one side of this picture to another. It's a lava tube. There's lava flowing underneath. There's holes or skylights where the top has fallen in. You can get a glimpse.
That is an awesome picture.
Thank you, sir.
You should stop standing on lava, Landon. Really, it's just like.
So these are. By the way,
that is a picture of Christy Winter's pussy right there. Look, it just steams, nasty gases. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, there's a lot of sulfur dioxide and hydrosulfuric, hydrochloric acid stuff and hydrogen sulfide stuff. This is not nice gas to breathe. And again, we can see these fissures, the spine where there's gas emissions, even though you don't see lava coming out at this point. Occasionally, it breaks open, spills out for a while, and freezes. By the way, these the helicopter is provided by an outfit called Blue Hawaiian Helicopters. If you want to go to see the eruption now, while going to the summit isn't a place to be because you're just going to see a pit that's widening and rocks falling from the sky, not a really picturesque. But the lava area here is actually accessible. So what I would do is take a commercial flight to Hilo, Hawaii, and land. It's well outside of the gas zone. And at the airport is an outfit called Blue Hawaiian Helicopters. And they take several flights a day over the lava zone. The pilots are extremely skilled. They know where the lava is going. In fact, we often rely on them for telling us, hey, it broke up here, broke, this thing is happening. So you can ride with them in the helicopter and see this stuff for yourself. The civil authorities were having problems with roads in the area cracking open, right? Again, lots of earthquakes, and you get several thousand earthquakes in a couple of days, lots of stuff cracks. But this isn't simply just bad road maintenance and potholes. This is the ground opening up. And you start seeing steam areas here that are happening where stuff is getting out. And then you get these fountains that are occurring. And this is, again, a fissure of high high velocity stuff. I mean, the heights here are approaching, this one is only about 50 meters or about 160 feet high for stuff. Lots of road closures, and the lava just kind of moves on through. Again, this is stuff where it's liquid, but it's also rock. I mean, this is amazing amount of mass, a lot of force moving, and putting up barriers or trying to divert it is just, the lava is just going to climb over your barrier, melt your barrier, and just keep going. So you just
fuck your barriers, nigga.
Yes, it's amazing. Now take a look at this power pole here. Why is this power pole still standing? Well, the pole is cold compared with the lava, and so the lava that comes in contact with the pole freezes, creates a little rock insulator, and for a surprising amount of time, this pole can actually stay there before it will end up. Same with these trees, right? The lava will freeze around the tree, but eventually it'll burn up and take it out. Lots of, when you see a fissure with gas coming up and then holes opening up, those holes are going down into fairly nasty stuff. So again, this is like, we'll close off this road.
Oh, it fucked that road up, didn't it?
Yeah, this is worse than sinkholes, I should say. And the authorities are trying to also look, when we see earthquake activity, we have them go out and check it out. And now they're basically advising people, don't drive over this thing, because in a few moments you can get stuff like this happening, right? Where the lava starts bouncing down the road and your access is cut off. One of the things that happens is that they come out with lava and take samples, and a sample of the gas, sample of the lava, to try to understand how deep this, the magma started turning and boiling up. Give us an idea about activity, whether this is fairly fresh magma or old magma. And you can see somebody here. There's not splattering in the area, so she doesn't have to have quite the shielding. But gas masks are quite important, because again, this gas here is fairly lethal. You approach upwind, you have an idea about wind, but you also have multiple people watching for activity. You have people monitoring the telemetry. So if there's any changes in earthquakes in the area, you move out of the area immediately.
You leave the intern there as a sacrifice for Pele while you make your way safely out of the area.
Actually, they really want to have a chance to do the sampling of stuff. And again, it's great field training for this.
Do you hear that, interns? You're not there to learn. You're there as a safety precaution.
And
that's why you're here, Red.
Oh. Access to certain roads, they talk about closing. This is kind of why those earlier things we saw, those little bit of cracks and that little bit of hole, turned into this thing, right? So this is what happens with earthquakes, and the ground is moving, deforming the what was once relatively straight road, and so you get things like this that have become impassable, and this eventually will become a fissure with lava coming out. But that's what happened.
Can we go back to the last picture and then this picture again, because I've just noticed something interesting. Now, kiddies in the class, can you notice anything about this picture? What's different than the other picture? And here's a hint. Look for the colors. Now, what would noxious gas do to human beings and plants alike if they were exposed to these gases for any period of time? They fucking die. Look at all the dead foliage. There's all the vegetation's dying off from exposure to gas.
Yep.
That's not burnt. That's all dead from being poisoned.
Yep.
It's frightening, isn't it?
Yes, and the other thing on the other end, this is a very wet area, so you have very green material just beyond it. Even though there's enormous heat showing up in this area, it is also very, very wet, and it takes a lot to burn. And then when it starts to burn, it tends to not burn very far. So again, road closures. Again, they try to anticipate these kind of events happening so that people have evacuation routes. But again, the smart folks, many of the native Hawaiians, have long since left, and it's It's people who have vacation homes. It's tourists. There also are farmers. There are certain herbal remedies that are grown in this area that Pele likes to imbibe in. And some of those farmers come up and harvest their crops.
It rhymes with Farafana.
Yes. Yes.
I noticed that intern was right at the dangerous spot again. It's just like you go and get up there, intern. Tell us what's happening.
This is part of their battlefield resume for stuff. So here's a picture. This is again the flow that was from Fisher 22 that was heading towards the ocean. It hadn't reached the ocean yet, and you see red because you have actual active moving lava that hasn't had time to freeze. But this is called a lava channel. This stuff hasn't hardened over, so you don't have tubes. You have channels there, and you begin the scale of this thing that's occurring for this flow. And again, we tend to think of liquid stuff like water flowing. This stuff flows a lot more like molasses, but on the other hand, it's also liquid rock that has, as dense as rock, and it has an amazing amount of force as well as heat coming from it.
I love how it meanders like a river, though. It's behaving. That's hydrodynamics. What it's doing basically, it's the behavior of liquids over a terrain. It's just finding the path of least resistance, really, isn't it?
Yes. And the other thing that happens is that the flow rate down this river of lava varies. So you'll get surges of lava that will come out, and you'll get a big surge that come out that'll be too big for the current channel to hold, and it'll spill out. And sometimes it spills out and goes for a long ways. Sometimes it spills out and creates an entirely new channel. Sometimes it spills out only a little bit and stops. It kind of varies. The meander. So not only is it meandering, but it's also breaking open. So not only is it crusting on the top, but it's hardening underneath, and this is raising up.
Like my ball sack.
Yeah, and so it's like his ball sack, I guess. And it rises up higher and higher, begins to create a mound, and stuff rolls off to the side and creates other alternative paths.
Like reds on that sack. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When it meets the ocean, it does a number of other things too. When lava gets in contact with ocean water, it flash boils. You get explosive boiling. But it'll take, for example, like the sea salt, and chemically break that apart, and you now get free radical sodium ions and chlorine ions. And the sodium ions mix with things and create stuff that can be quite noxious or boomy. And you get chlorine that forms with stuff to get hydrochloric acid and other gases. There's also chlorine in the ocean. You get fluorine compounds that are amazingly toxic, amazing reactive. They'll, the hydrofluoric acid will eat glass, right?
Did you take this photo too?
No, this is a colleague of mine. I'm sorry, I took this one.
Okay, because this photo, it's like all that beautiful greenery there, and that's that you see that right there, and that danger right at the end there. It's just it tells a story. This is a beautiful fucking photo. Thank you.
And it's I'll pass that compliment along. This, and also these are farms. Some of these farms are like macadamia nut farms. There are other farms for various herbal medicines that are also grown in this area. There's, in addition to vacation homes and Native Hawaiians, there also are people that live off the grid and do sort of people that are in sort of the natural, the naturalists that grow their own food on their own land and make out a living disconnected from modern society. It's got an interesting mix of folks down in this area. Here is another picture of an ocean entry. you remember from the maps, there was those 2 ocean entries that first started, and we thought this was going to be the area that was there. This house put up a nice web camera to watch it for a while until the lava broke open the tube and went out and wiped out that house. And again, this white puffy clouds are actually fairly obnoxious gas. The other thing that you don't realize is the smell. In this ocean are critters, fish and so forth, and they get boiled, die, float on the surface, and you have this dead, rotting meat that attracts critters. And it kind of tends to be, there's a feeding frenzy on the edge, but they eventually get cooked as well. And the result is you have essentially what you could imagine, rotting fish and stuff sitting in the ocean, warm ocean for days at a time, putrefying, and it stinks really bad. But again, you don't want to be near this area. One, because it's very easy for a little bit farther up that channel to break open, move around you, and trap you, right? And part of what we were trying to convince this homeowner is to say it's very easy for the lava to flank around you, and all of a sudden you're now trapped between 2 lava flows, and we may not be able to pull you out because no sane pilot is going to fly down in there to die or to have noxious gas corrode your rotors or other fatal stuff. So we basically, this photo was taken essentially saying to this homeowner, leave or you'll probably die. And we won't, and they basically given it, the person left, by the way, unfortunately. And part of the convincing was saying, no helicopter pilot is going to fly in and rescue you because they're not going to risk their life if you refuse to leave. And some people take that advice. So here's looking at the channel. By the way, this is the same channel. You now see the house has been deleted that was nearby. You see a second channel to the other side. These are those 2 active ocean entries that existed for a couple of days. Here is now back to that fissure 22 and the motion, but you also see down the spine towards the summit lots of gas coming out with fountains that are coming out here. Again, more of the channel area. The lava, when it pours out, sometimes creates incredible shapes. This slow moving stuff will then harden, particularly because you get a big downpour. And some of the pictures, some of the patterns of the rock are I find really quite amazing that it will form. Again, you see the fissures there with the lava hitting the forests. And I want to talk about this forest area here, right? Again, very, very tropical, very dense jungle type forests. Lots of vegetation on the surface. And when lava comes on top of that, it cooks it. This vegetation cooks, rots, and produces methane. That methane comes to the surface. And in this particular case, this was taken by a very long, not by me, but by someone with a very, very long telephoto lens. These blue flames here are methane that's on fire. And this is a very dangerous situation when lava comes in contact with plant material, generates methane. The methane lights on fire, but methane pockets underneath can build up and explode. And you get very, very violent explosions of methane that send lava, hot rock, and burning plant material for a very, very, very long distance. I mean, these explosions, I've seen explosions where the methane has sent stuff some 200 meters or 600 feet into the air. So these are, the blue flame is a sign of get the hell out of the area. And that's particularly dangerous in approaching this on the ground where lava is moving into fresh forest. You stay away from that because of these things. Again, these lava flows, these river channels are meandering down the spine. On the other hand, you can find areas where you can approach it safely, again, if you know the conditions. Again, more of the lava channels. Here's a house that escaped the two things on the side, but this flow is going to come out and wipe it out eventually. Particularly at night, this was the two ocean entries. You can see from the fast flowing things this is a combination of visual and infrared to give you an idea about where the lava is flowing. More lava photos. This is what we call volcano porn, by the way. This is geologist there. Another one here took of the flow. This is called and it tends to be more resemble like embers in a fire, kind of crinkling as this wall of crumbly rock, advances along. Extremely high temperatures here, but it's instead of it flowing, that ropey lava flowing called pahoehoe, this is and tends to be very hot and have these embers that just crinkle along. So this is pahoehoe lava, more liquid flow. Look at this huge fountain in the background, just moving down the road, road closed here. This is another case of fissures, cracks coming in the road where it then turns into a major flow. More eating stuff here. Again, we're taking pictures of the, looking at the spectrum of the material, trying to get an idea about activity. Another flow. Advancing flows here. More road closures. And again, look at this stuff. Look at these plants that are surviving for a little while. The lava hits the plant. The plant itself is relatively cold, freezes, and you get this rock insulation around a lava. The plant will burn away, and that what will remain around in the rock is a mold. It's a perfect impression of the mold. You can actually see the bark of the former tree impressed in the rock mold that it went through. Here again, it's coming through the forest, methane explosions, other things as it's moving through forest land. It's heading down. This is this spot heading down towards so-called vacation land. The fish are becoming quite active, seeing lava far in the air, high volumes of material coming out. There's the moon up here, and nice fountaining. So fish rate is really at this point pouring out lots of lava. Another road gets closed. Here is a case again that same road closure where it goes and breaks around and flanks and is bought. So here is the here now is the area heading towards the bay and vacation land. It's already boiled away that lake behind us, and it's fanning out. And essentially, all the people are told, have been long told to evacuate. The lava's coming. And this beautiful coral reef area is now under. So lava has actually filled this entire bay in, right, and it's gone out quite a bit of distance. But this is the advancing front before it has reached the bay. There it's entering the bay, right, and again the ocean isn't stopping lava; it just keeps advancing. Again, at this point, all of these houses you see here are now under lava. So look at this is basically in the course of 4 hours. It went from here to here. Bay is gone, houses are gone, and it's moved out now to form a peninsula. You're looking upland, and you see tremendous amounts of volume of lava coming down the channels that are now crusting over and forming tubes. At the summit, at Fissure 8, where it's starting, lots of lava still comes out, so there's plenty of new material entering into the volume. So I wanted to show you now what we do with regards to or how you can for yourself look at what's happening with thing, and then we'll start to take questions and
wow, that's like
open
a
up.
that looks like a hallway of computer shit right there.
There you go.
There you go.
And let's say hi to all those people down there.
Fuck those people. Okay.
All right, so let's go back here. I will show you what, and I'll put these links into the chat area so you can see what's happens. But this is a collection of tabs that are useful for what you can watch what happens with the eruption. So this first site gives you a current status. They typically update this once a day. This was done at night, but sometimes when there's major changes, they'll put up warnings here. This is talking about Fissure 8 and where the maps, where what's happening with the United States, the highways that are closed, warnings about don't go near the ocean, what's happening at the summit, talking about magnitude 3 earthquakes that have occurred in the last hour, the park closed, that sort of thing. So it's kind of a status thing that gives you sort of a summary of the last hours or so. Tilt information is very, very important. Here's the Halemaumau summit in the caldera. Here is the Pu'o event, and there are these tilt meters that show essentially the angle of the ground, and these are done in microradians. So this is a 1 kilometer bar that moves up 1 millimeter, or a 1 kilometer bar that moves up the thickness of a dime, right? Is 1 microradian. And it used to be that you would see swings on the order of 1 or 2 microradians. This is very rapid changes. And these spikes here tend to be explosions. So you see the last few days, we see major explosions that occurred in the last 2 days from this area. The rift zone, this is the area where the lava is coming out, and we see these lava surges, a giant fountain draining away, surge drain activity. Another area we look at is the size of the summit. So there's a couple of GPS meters that are on either side of the caldera, and we look at the length, and it was moving along here, rose up a little bit, and then have this rapid decline. You see over the last year or last 5 years, this rapid drop where the mountain is shrinking. This is the mountain falling in on itself. And while it's only, the motion here is about 1.3 meters, around 4 feet, over 3 kilometers, it's roughly, let's say, 2-ish miles or so. That's actually a rapid change in size of the mountain sagging on itself. So you can see some of this telemetry where over the 5 years, it rapidly expanded, Pu'o collapsed, and it's now declining. So this telemetry tells us about the summit and other places of how the mountain is, if you will, is breathing, inhaling and exhaling. So I'll look at that. I'll show you that. This is the information about the maps. So you'll see a history, both thermal and other things. If you want to know where the lava is flowing, they build these maps. If you click on the map, you'll get a more detailed view that will talk about what's happening where. Actually for precision, for people that are trying to find out what's happening with their property or roads or other things, these maps are also quite valuable. So the map area is a useful thing that they keep up to date. Air quality is another thing. If the Park Service had opened, this is up at Halemaumau, the summit, you get these area is talking about. And normally what you'll see is a gray area with a streaming. That's basically telling you the gas motion. Right now, there's no wind, and gas is basically hovering around in the area. And if you click on these things, you'll see a history of gas levels going from it's okay to it's getting quite nasty and unhealthy and to hazardous. That gives you stuff in gas level. Photochronology is a collection of photos. So this was just that earthquake I got noticed on. There was a magnitude 5.6 earthquake while we were speaking. This is a picture of that explosion. From there, again, this is Loudmouthed Summit. This is the area where you used to be able to do overlooks. And as you can see, the whole pit is now engulfed in this particular explosion. But some of the photos I contribute are here. You can see, for example, this was a parking lot. These rocks were not here the day before. So these rocks fell from the sky, which is one reason why you don't want to be around this area at the moment. Lots of cracks in the ground and the roads. You'll see ocean entry stuff. There are videos showing you what it looks like. Videos of the summit. This is a very for example, this video here and this video here will show you the tracing from the sea. So it might be worthwhile looking at stuff here. So we're going to basically go from fissure 8 down to the ocean entry. You're going to look through. So this is this is fissure 8 coming into the this is into the lava tube system. 150 feet or about 40 meters, 45 meters in the air of the lava. That's
I don't know, Landon. You see, because my internet connection is really crappy and I've got low def, so I'm calling false flag CGI government conspiracy. That volcano is not actually happening.
You can see it crusted over here. Again, this is the lava channel turning into a tube, moving down, give you the scale. Occasionally, holes break open on the side, you get little side channels, but again, you get the idea about, you take a look at the size of these houses on here, you get the size of the width of this mass of liquid rock moving down the channel. Various roads that have been blocked off and closed.
Wow.
Here, and again, we're just at the top of this lava channel.
Just for a little perspective here, boiling a liter of water takes a lot of energy. How much energy is in play right now to melt this rock and to keep it in a molten state? There must be a tremendous amount of energy. Just
extraordinary amount of energy. I mean, if it's able to take a lake and boil it off in a couple of hours.
Yeah, an entire lake. Yeah. That's frightening, because to turn water to steam takes a lot of energy to be transferred, and it's that to boil off the biggest lake in 4 fucking hours. And I don't know. We'll do some reading and find out how many liters of water or megaliters have boiled off, and probably be able to work out the energy needed to do that pretty easily.
Hot in a hot tub.
It's
pretty hot.
That's
very hot tub there. Hot.
Carolina Reaper chili fucking hot tub.
Yeah, and again, you can see from the houses there the size of this channel, the amount of rock tumbling down. Even though it's a liquid form, there's a lot of material, a lot of weight here that's heading down. There's that cone. Behind the cone is the vacation land area. So we're going to move around, look at the vacation land on the side. This is now the bay. The former coral reef that's now a lava delta. So all those houses have gone. The bay is gone, and it's moving out into the ocean. And that's that. So I encourage you to go and look at some of these pictures. You click on the picture, and you'll get some spectacular photos. Yeah. But in addition, you'll see explanations of what's happening down here that we contribute to this
Awesome stuff, man.
There's also a thing called a volcano watch, and this volcano watch gives you information. Like this is the stuff about how to protect yourself from volcanic ash. There are articles there are research articles that are there. This is an earthquake map here, and it allows you to drill in and see just where the earthquakes are occurring and what happened. There was a big quake here, so a 7.2 quake that just happened. And you go and click on the thing, you get information about the quake, what happened, how deep it was, etc. So lots of earthquake stuff there. Here is a couple of cameras we've installed up at the summit. So this is a loudmouthed summit. When you click on this thing, you'll get a live picture. The explosion that has occurred, there's a rock falling right there. And this used to be zoomed into the lava lake, but now the lava lake is too big for us to see. Finally, there is when you're not watching Pimpmunk on YouTube,
all the time, by the way. It should be all the time.
There's this thing, and this is actually one of our best accomplishments. We have a live picture of the summit. The lava lake used to be a small little spot here. It's now expanded wider than the field of view that we can see at this point. So this vent has now become enormous. I will have to figure out how to get a wider angle camera here, but this is now about 2 kilometers across. That's turned into this huge cauldron.
I don't know, Landon. That could be a close-up of the aftermath of Pimp's butt after he's fucking been to the local Mexican joint and got some nice hot chili.
Or just a bunch of Mexicans fucking me in my ass. What?
I've sort of reached the end of the volcano porn, and
awesome.
I will put links. I'll put these links into the chat for you to click on. But you can maintain stuff. We do our best.
If you send me the links, I will put them in the description as well.
Okay, I'll send you the links, and you can put it in the description there. We do our best to try to keep this thing going, but the volcano tends to wipe out our cameras. Earthquakes cause stuff to fall. Ash buries solar panels, and but the main thing is we're trying to do is both the scientific information as well as for health and safety. So
and I'd just like to say 54 interns have given their lives to keep this stream going, and we salute every single one of you. Yes, thank you for your sacrifice.
So, questions, comments?
But before you, thank you, Landon, for this great presentation. We appreciate it, man. Very awesome.
I cannot hear chat clapping. What the fuck, chat? I can't hear you clap.
Chat is stupid, man.
Fuck.
All right, so I'm gonna unpresent where they can. Okay, stop presenting. You're done, right? Showing the stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you can see my pretty fucking face.
Yeah, you can see that crappy avatar that I got now too.
And I just want to thank Alan for putting the $10 up. We're now $90 away from having a Saturday morning wood. So if you want to see a Saturday morning wood, you better tip and get us there to it's $100 go. We have $10 on it. Thank you, Alan, once again. Please tip. It's really needed, and we'll have a Saturday morning wood. Yeah.
Here's another way to look at it. I'll be deprived of another night's sleep. It's kind of like torturing red eye as well.
Torture red eye.
Not $90. Split that between the audience. That's a pretty cheap torture session to get to see me suffer from insomnia. It's going to be great.
Absolutely. If you have questions in the chat, please ask, and I will read the question for Landon. And but remember, tip, and get torture red, and help me get a whore.
So
yeah,
I just say I really love volcanoes. Although astronomy was my first experience. I had the privilege in the early 1960s of going to Lassen Volcanic National Park. In the early 1960s, when it had erupted in 1915, and at the time was the most recent continental United States volcano, and there were people of the the First Nations tribes there that lived there. And I remember this lady, she called herself Annie, and she was one of the people. She was a very elderly lady at the time, but she saw the Lassen eruptions, and it was interesting to hear how the Native Americans talked about how they interpreted the Lassen volcano erupting and exploding and the pyroclastic flows that occurred. It really is kind of amazing to hear their live stories, and that inspired me to pay attention. And then I had the privilege of Mount St. Helens erupting in my college backyard and so forth. So Kilauea remains my favorite volcano. Mauna Loa second, Lassen, Mount St. Helens, and Mount Erebus are my 5.
We have a question. How long do you think the cleanup will take or cost?
Oh, I got this one. There's no cleanup, because when that lava flows over people's property, they lose that property and it becomes public land again. And they don't have a think about how much would it cost to dig through 10 feet of rock to get back to your little block of land. It's all over Red Rover. If you lose your property and lava flows over it, it becomes public land. So yeah, no cleanup necessary, and it makes sense, really. Why would you want to try and clean up an area where lava flows constantly? It's like, yeah, once it's gone, we might want to just move on and try a different spot, eh?
Exactly. Also, it's going to be maybe a decade or 2 before plans come back with a vengeance. So you would end up with a bunch of rock with really no surfaces, and in some cases you get lava pools where the lava can stay liquid for extended period of time beneath the surface. So it's not really usable land. Maybe decades later, they'll go and rezone it and bring back houses. Technically, you have the material below the surface, but essentially the new land and that new, those people that had beachfront property no longer have beachfront property, right? The new land that's there in that bay is now public, and then they get to decide, the public gets to decide what to do. But from a land standpoint, this is how the island grows, and this is how the island's maintained. So the notion is, if you put your house in Pele's way,
it's the earth letting us know that we're not in fucking control.
No, not in the slightest.
Yeah.
So cleanup, now understand other issues that you talk about cleanup. There are plenty of houses that are not wiped out that are nearby these channels. And so what will happen first is that they will begin to build roads. So the roads, typically what the civil authorities do is get construction crews when the rock is hardened and it's no longer, of course, flowing, to build a road, and they'll first get sort of a gravel road, and then eventually they'll pave it when it remains stable. One of the things that happens is that as the rock cools, it contracts and changes shape. So if you pave over it immediately, you'll find the contracting rock will break your road again. So you put a house on it with a foundation, and your foundation will crack because the thing's subsiding, because it's shifting, right? It's contracting, and it's so you wait for a while for it to become stable. So they'll put roads in, they'll string, try to get power, and later on try to get water in there. But there's a number of people in this area that have just accepted the fact that utilities break and they're off the grid, and so they use solar panels, water catchments. There's lots of water that falls from the sky, so you can put a catchment basin and live off of water like that. It might be, years. Understand that the people that are in places under Pool O, has been flowing up for 35 years, have been waiting for the eruption to stop. And of course, it hasn't stopped in a while, so there's not really any point of putting surface back in, because the volcano just wipe it out again.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's not awesome, but it's an awesome answer. By the way, Saturday morning wood, if you want it, tip, we get to $100. We've got $10. Luna will be there wearing Daisy Dukes. That's something to see. That's awesome. It's sexy. Luna, Daisy Dukes. Wow, sexy girl wearing Daisy Dukes. You know you want to see that shit again. And Red Eye will wear Daisy Dukes also.
I'm not going to wear anything.
There you go. We're gonna have a upskirt camera for a red, and you'll see his little flaccid little penis.
What? Upskirt? How can it? No, don't need that. I'll put a GoPro on it. I'll just hang a GoPro off it. Do the helicopter.
Yeah, but Luna and a Daisy Dukes, you know you want to see that. We need $90 to make a Saturday Morning Wood. The show is officially supposed to end now, but I'm gonna give you like 10 minutes, and you can ask Landon more questions if you want about volcanoes for the next 10 minutes. We're going 10 minutes over to see if we can make the $90.
If you get $1,000, I'll wear Daisy Dukes.
Hell, if you get $1,000, I'll wear fucking Daisy Dukes.
Yes, excellent.
I'll beat Landon's ass and make him wear Daisy Dukes. Huh?
You wear Daisy Dukes, I bring vodka.
Yes, bring the vodka and I bring my wiener. Luna is yum, I agree. I concur with that statement, ma'am.
Yeah, I'll wear some Daisy Dukes, and me and Luna will work the pole.
Yeah,
we'll do some pole dancing, and it's gonna half of it's gonna be great, half of it's gonna be an utter clusterfuck, and some of the most I don't know. How would you describe me dancing on a pole? Just what can be seen cannot be unseen.
Men committing suicide?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think planetary genocide. That everyone would just neck themselves. It's like that's no.
Yeah, you don't want that. You don't want
It'd
that.
be
These
like
links that I'm posting in the chat, I'm sending also to Pimpmunk. So
There you go. I will be putting them in the description a little bit later. So there we go. And you can come back if you can't if you aren't copying these now, you can come back and get them in the description. Show enough, baby puff. And thank you once again, Landon, for the great presentation. It was awesome.
Let's say, and thanks also the USGS and the National Park Service and so forth that do a lot of work, try to bring this information. It is amazing that we have this much information about this active eruption ongoing. There are, however, a number of volcanoes that are currently erupting right now in the world. I mean, there's dozen plus that are actively erupting right now, but none of them have the amount of instrumentation and data as we have from Kilauea. A guy named Jagger, the Jagger Museum, that's named after, started the world's first volcano observation center, and it's been running for over 100 years now, like 104 years, and it's a shame because there's a number of volcanoes that are actually quite dangerous that are right near populated areas, like what the tragedy that happened in Guatemala, where they simply lack of monitoring, people get surprised. Here with this volcano, because we have such great data, we tend to not be surprised and are able to keep things relatively safe. So there's a lot of stuff that's gone in there, and I wish that, from the point of view of aviation safety, people safety on the ground, so forth, some of these other volcanoes, even some in the United States, like up in Alaska and so forth, that are fairly dangerous, that need to be monitored. And I say I'm posting these links here. Other questions?
I do not see any. You got 6 minutes though. 6 minutes. We're going to 10 minutes late. Oh, so there you go. If you got questions, please ask. Please tip. We need a Saturday Morning Wood, and Pimpmunk needs that cash. And I'm offering you a beautiful, sexy woman in Daisy Duke. She will be here and talking and showing her little cute belly and all that good shit.
And the whole depriving me of sleep.
Yes, and we torture Red also. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And just think, you got for this quality information. This is not information you're going to find
And we would
on the news.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you become a Patreon of Pimpmunk, you get access to the Discord server. In the Discord server, there is a particular channel called the Science Channel, where I regularly post updates, usually once a day or so, photos that we've taken and commentary on the eruption in quite detail. So those that have been patrons have been following this train of events now for quite some time. So if you want to be in the know and you want to see, the latest stuff, become a Patreon of Pimpmunk.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's just not the volcanic stuff. We've been following Cassini, and there's just been some pretty exciting news on the Juno mission, hasn't there, Landon? It's like
absolutely.
There's been a certain pack of engineers at NASA that said, listen, we think it's got this much survivability, but they basically really undersold it. Like they must have gone, we'll keep the best case scenario secret and we'll tell them a worst case minimum spec and give them that to work with. And they've got this probe out there and it's been flying through so much radiation that you'd be dead, all of us would be dead millions of times fucking over. And this little box is surviving, flying through these bands of radiation that would literally turn our DNA into fucking junk. And they've just announced, what is it, an extension of, is it 2 years?
Yes.
And that's a huge achievement in space engineering, like engineering for like keeping electronics alive in a harsh environment full of radiation. That's a massive achievement.
It's a really, I mean, the intensity of radiation near Jupiter is quite extraordinary, and it's the fact that spacecraft has survived. Well, is really a testament to some amazing engineering that hardened this thing. It's giving us some really great views of the cloud tops of Jupiter that are quite extraordinary.
Yeah,
very, very beautiful, as well as full of scientific goodies.
Well, here's the thing. I think a lot of people that have watched Star Trek are aware of Jupiter Station. Now, in reality, everyone on Jupiter Station fucking died, and I don't care how much shielding they had. But what we have learned is this craft, keeping its electronics functional in this sort of environment, may lead to breakthroughs where we start to learn how to shield organics from this amount of radiation safely. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen tomorrow, but this is the start of that journey. It's really exciting news for anyone that understands what it's achieved and and extending the mission for 2 years is that's massive for this sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so cheers to those guys at NASA and all the engineers and all the companies that worked on this shit. You guys fucking did good. And girls. Yeah, guys and girls did good.
Well, Red, it doesn't look like you're gonna be tortured tomorrow, so.
Ah, well.
And no sexy Luna either.
Now that does kind of bum me out a bit.
And no Pimpmunk.
Unless I host a private hangout and just invite Luna to hang out with me.
I belched.
You did what?
I did the belch.
Yes, I do love big explosions. I'm usually the witness to the explosions as opposed to the maker of the explosions. But as I say, so that last one, the live stream, was the first time that we've gotten enough bandwidth to do a YouTube photo. It's low quality data, but that's going over over the air.
Yeah.
And it'll go as long as it lasts. These cameras get wiped out and we try to restore them, so you have to be patient there. But again, this is an extraordinary technological achievement to be able to get this area that's under such constant trauma to give you live safe views of it.
I was hoping though your browser tabs would at least have one that said "dude fucking poodle."
Well, as I say, particularly the volcano porn is useful as they call it.
Landon be watching some real freaky porn though. We like people sticking licorice in their buttholes and stuff. That's what Landon watches.
It's interesting, by the way, that the YouTube people gave the Killer Volcano a continuous stream. So that particular stream has been going for started on June 5th.
You mean they don't deem that dangerous?
Well, you know,
Fucking novel.
I would have demonetized that if I was YouTube. Just saying, just to be
Yeah.
safe.
I wonder how many community strikes they've gotten from, Pele.
57.
It's been triggered. Someone's been triggered.
Yeah.
Well, okay, guys. Landon, once again, thank you so very much.
Thank you very much for I hope you enjoyed it. Please consider becoming a patron, and you'll be able to see much more detailed stuff about this eruption. Pimpmunk has all these links I posted in the chat as well.
Yeah, I'll be adding them to the description. And I want to thank the audience for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show today. A little different, but it was a very educational and interesting show, and I like it. So, thank you for watching. No, we did not make the stream go, so there will not be a Saturday morning show. Won't be one. You guys ruined it, man, by not tipping. It's your fucking fault. You can all kiss my flabby ass.
You could have prevented me from sleeping over the weekend and getting enough sleep to continue on the next week. You could have ruined all that for me and tortured me, but no, you chose to save your money and not do that, and that's sad.
Yep. Well, I guess that's all.
And no Daisy Dukes, man. It's like
no Lunar Dukes, man.
I've lost my faith in humanity.
Me too. It's fucking.
So thanks very much for that.
Yes, sir. And so yeah. So guys, audience, I'll catch you later. Catch the Morning Wood next week. I do know that on Tuesday we got Hell Bent as a guest, and I don't know about the rest of the week. Also, one day next week, special guest host. I can't make it here, so Pimpmunk is going. Pimpmunk is going to be a guest host. And I hear she's got a lot of things to say.
I heard she's become sort of a SJW-ish.
Apparently, she has stepped over to the SJW side.
Oh, and I'm going to co-host with her.
Yeah, you're going to co-host with her. And she's got a lot of stuff to say. So we'll see what happens.
Am I sounding like a really whiny little bitch right now? Going,
you always sound like a whiny bitch.
Good. No, I mean, I want to really sell this shit. It's like, I don't want to.
I hear you, bud. Well, you don't. If you want to sell it, you don't announce you trying to sell it.
I just don't want to go near her. She scares me, boss. She scares me.
She scares me too. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. We'll catch you later.